everyone, welcome to another transplant video. Now before we get into this, I would like to make a pledge to you. If you guys subscribe to this, we will make every single week a transplants video until the transplant games in August 2021, and then we'll make some special feature documentaries on it as well when we do go there. So please make sure you hit that subscribe button. If we have 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, we'll be able to even donate the fees made from this video onto the NHS organ donation site. So please make sure you hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to us. And watch the rest of this video. Thank you very much for watching. In a bit.
So today we are joined by Janka Penther. I want to say, I've got your name. Got your name right there.
That's right.
We'll start at the start as we always do. So your transplant. Let's start there. So pre that, what was your sporting activity like in physical activity?
So I was born with cystic fibrosis, which means I've always had a reduced lung function, always been sort of on the weaker side. So I've never ever really competed in any sport. I was never really good at it. You know, I did sports in school and attended, and that was sort of great. But never competitively. I did a bit of, horseback riding, played a bit of basketball, but always for the social factor, never being good at it. And everyone knew that I was poorly, so it was all right, that sort of thing. So I was happy to do it, but never really good, and certainly not competing.
Absolutely. And then, so when it came to the transplant, obviously, so you've had this underlying condition previously. So did you have any sort of pre-knowledge that that you would have this transplant? Or did it just come as a sudden shock?
So I always knew what end-stage cystic fibrosis looked like in theory. I think I was about 15, 16 years old when I was really realized what it meant, and I saw some people in real life who were at this stage. And at that point, I made the decision that I didn't want to go into that world of so much pain and discomfort and not being able to breathe. So when I was 16, I sort of made up my mind that I wanted to sign up with Dignitas once I was at that stage, which is sort of the safe exit group to end your own life. But at 16, I was still quite fairly healthy, so it wasn't a decision I had to make there and then. But about 10 years later, or sort of 12 years later, I was at this point where my lungs had just deteriorated, as they do with cystic fibrosis, that in my late 20s, I was at that decision. And my GP, or my cystic fibrosis consultant, spoke to me about transplant, but I had never met anyone who'd had a successful lung transplant. I couldn't imagine what this life might be like. I just knew I couldn't breathe, and I would never be able to breathe. And I just was just existing and trying to survive on about 3 or 4 machines, attached to 3 or 4 machines. So yeah, I made it onto the list. So yeah, it was not sudden, but I didn't really want to go down the transplant route. And I then, within a year of being listed, I thought, okay, let's give this a go. But still very, very much in doubt, because I hadn't met anyone who was living happily after transplant, but not even, doing any sports or competing after transplant.
Yeah. So talk to me about the operation, the day, the whole experience of it. So was it something that you were nervous about? How were you feeling on the day?
On the day of my transplant, well, I had a call the week before. So my transplant consultant said, you have a really good chance of getting an organ. I mean, the average waiting time was 18 months, about 18 months. So at that point, you can't imagine another 18 days in this stage, on oxygen machines, on feeding machines, on sort of kidney machines, to keep everything going. So 18 months is a long time to wait. But I got a call. I was listed. It took me a while to get onto the list because I was underweight, so I had to do certain things to get on the list. I was listed, and literally 2 weeks later, I got my first call for some lungs, and everything. This is late at night, and everyone's really, almost sick of. It's not excitement, it's fear, and it's sort of hope, and it's a load of weird feelings. But unfortunately, those lungs were not good enough. So I went back, and a week later, I got another call. And I was still recovering physically from that trip. I lived in Cornwall at the time and had to go up to London. So I wasn't in this. I thought, this is another false call. It's fine. It's not going to happen. And then after about 8 hours of checking of these donated lungs, are okay to be transplanted, they come in and say, you've got 20 minutes to call your family and we're going. And that was a bit like, oh God, wow, it's real. And excitement is the wrong word, but I was just so done with this life. I knew I couldn't hang on much longer. So I was happy to go into theatre, and whatever happened would happen. That I remember that feeling. It was just like, let's get this done and over with. And if I don't wake up, it's fine. But if I do wake up, then I'm going to make the most of that.
Yeah. And so obviously you did, you're here, and it's been, I'm guessing, a while since then. So how
it's been 7 years. It's been, I just had recently my 7-year anniversary.
Yeah. So sort of, how was it just coming out of that, and how was the recovery? First off, like, it must have been just quite overwhelming almost.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. Obviously worth it. Absolutely worth it. But obviously your lungs, I was really lucky. My lungs worked really quickly, really well. So I didn't suffer with a lot of infection, with any rejection while I was in hospital. So that was great. But obviously your body is so weak. Your muscles are gone. I'm 5'5", and I was just under 7 stone. So that's, you're thin, you're small at that point. So I couldn't even walk, 5 meters and make a cup of tea in the kitchen, because the muscles are gone. You have no strength at all. So that was tough. And obviously we're talking, at that point, you're just talking physio. You're not even talking training. It's just sort of trying to walk, trying to sit up out of a chair without using your arms and stuff like that. So I had great physio support in the hospital. And then you come home when you can walk like a set of stairs. That's when they send you home. After about 2 weeks, I was sent home. And then, it's the walk with the dog. It's painful. I remember being on this exercise bike and just being in a lot of pain, because the lungs obviously still really sore, and you're weaning yourself off all the strong pain medication. And yes, I couldn't see where I would go. I just wanted to, day by day, I want to just get a bit better. And I think 6 months in was the first time where I did a sport called canicross. So that's running with your dogs with a harness and sort of doing different courses cross country. And I should say jog. I didn't run anywhere, but I jogged somewhere, and I jogged my first 5K a year after my transplant. And that was the first time I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. The thrill again of competing, the thrill of exercise, of your lungs burning, not because you're out of breath because you've walked, you're out of breath because you've ran 5K. And that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's crazy. So when did you first hear sort of about Transplant Sport as an organization, and how they organize this crazy community of people and stuff like that?
So the first time I heard about it was, ironically, I was poorly in hospital. I when I got this transplant, I was very aware that there is a limited time that I have. I'm sort of living on borrowed time, and that can be very limited with transplant recipients. So I tried to pack everything into every minute I had. So I decided to go camping in the first winter with my transplant. So November 2013, came back with double-sided pneumonia, obviously. And as I was recovering in hospital, our team manager, he lived near the hospital, and he would do sort of the rounds in on the ward, obviously with that was okay with the hospital, with permission, and speak to us sort of newbie transplanted people that he could sort of see about the games, about the British Transplant Games. And at that point, I'm in hospital, I'm fearing, this is my first infection with my new lungs, I'm worried that I won't survive this, I'm not interested in any games, but he talked to me about it, and months later, when I was well, I thought, oh, well, what's this guy talking about? And that's when I sort of went back and Googled a bit and read on Facebook, and just sort of really just came to the first Transplant Games or British Games in Newcastle 2015 on my own, and just thought, I'm just going to try this out. And then it went from there. I loved it. I loved it the minute I got there. I loved the community, loved meeting other people with the same transplant, with CF that are way longer down further down that journey. So for me, a year after my transplant, or 2 at that point, almost like 1.5, seeing people with 7, 8, 9, 10 years with a lung transplant with CF, that was amazing. That was, I didn't think I'd there was a chance I'd get there. And then I see these people not just alive, but very much competing and very successfully competing in very high intensity sports. That was inspirational. That gave me an idea of where I wanted to be.
And yeah, so you've gone on. So what sort of events did you envisage yourself first taking part in, and what sort of array of events have you managed to get into?
Well, because I started jogging with my dog, I thought, well, I do a bit of track, which was fun, but I wasn't very successful. I had just sort of, I was still recovering. I saw myself more as still recovering rather than training for an event. And I did a bit of swimming because I thought, oh, swimming's quite fun. And I medaled in that. How I did it, I don't know, because I was just a bit of breaststroke and that was about it. And then I met in the swim team, I met people from other hospitals that are sort of competing on international level, and they said, oh, Janka, you know, if you put some training into this, you can actually be quite all right, you know. And they encouraged me, and then it went from there. So then I started competing at the European heart and lung transplant games, and I had trained for that. In just the swimming, I learned front crawl as a stroke. So I didn't know that before. So that's when I sort of focused my training to be, I got competitive. I got a bit competitive. I thought, I really want to do well. I don't want to just come and be there. I want to do well. And yeah, so I competed in one of the Euros, and then again at the British Games. And that's when I was picked up by Team GB coaches for the swim team, and was selected for Malaga for the 2017 World Games and 2019 for Newcastle again. Yeah,
so it's been a rough, amazing ride for you. So, like, talk to me about sort of the community aspect of it. So you've obviously met a lot of people who've been through the same situation. Was that sort of a comforting thing for you that, you know, I can be like them and I will be?
Yeah, 100%. And I had obviously a bit of a community with the cystic fibrosis community pre-transplant, but I was never this active in the community because it was my perception then, it was all a very poorly people, very sick people. And as a young teenager, it's not what I wanted to be around, quite frankly. Now I met people with cystic fibrosis after transplant who were inspirational. Like, they did stuff, they did sports, they had relationships, they had jobs, it went beyond sports, the inspiration and the, you know, sometimes you just need to see what other people are doing to believe that you can do that or something like that. And so, yeah, for me, it had a huge impact on sport, but far beyond sport, you know, to think I could have a career. I mean, I was born and my life expectancy was 2, you know, and my parents always made sure I went to school and I did a job and I qualified for, you know, I worked hard. It was never like, oh, she's not going to live that long, we're not going to, you know, make her do certain things. And I traveled the world. But I never had this idea of having a career, because you can't think, oh, well, it's going to sound harsh, but is it worth it? Is it worth the hard work I put into it if I only have like 2 or 3 years to enjoy that? But seeing these transplanted athletes and, you know, and that they become friends really drove home to me like, no, I should plan for the future. You know, I never allowed myself to do that before. And to see that, and I mean, now I have a career, or, you know, and I'm engaged to get married. I'm making plans for the future, which I never allowed myself to do that before, you know, and that comes from that community of transplant buddies, for sure.
Absolutely amazing. I look, it's really, really, this is why we do this project, you know, to get stories like this. So in terms of the games, obviously they're postponed this year due to the current situation, which is rather unfortunate, but next year, are you there? Absolutely, bells on. I'm team manager for our hospital now, because the person that spoke to me in the hospital then has retired. So yes, I'm absolutely can't wait. Absolutely can't wait. We have a lot of people newbies who were going to come to this year's games. Obviously not happening, but they are really amped to come. They're sort of a year or 2 after transplant, so I think, again, great opportunity for them to have a similar experience to what I had. Equally, people who have been transplanted for a rather long time, who never thought about competing, but we've done a lot of work on sort of Facebook, social media. So yeah, they're all keen, raring to go. Absolutely. And just to finish us off, we do this at the end of every single one. Use 3 words to describe to me what transplant sport has how transplant sport has impacted you.
Definitely a confidence, hope, giving me hope to live a long and healthy life, and friendship. I've made a lot of really great friends. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's an absolutely brilliant advert for all transplant sports. Well, thank you very much, Janka, for joining me. It's been a real pleasure. But excellent. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me. Cheers.